One of the areas of fashion inclusion that you mentioned a lot in your work that I think it's super, super important because we don't talk a lot about it is disability, the visibility of people with disabilities. There's a lot of conversations around race, about gender, about sizes, and all of these are super important, but also disability, because around 20% of people in the United States have a disability. And you also mentioned in your work that in over 5 years, three mainstream fashion magazines, I'm not going to say their names, but it's Vogue, InStyle, and Harper's Bazaar, have not had a single person with a disability in their cover. So this is an area of opportunity in the fashion industry as well, right? So can you explain a little bit more of the insights of your research around this topic?
Yeah, so um, my co-author and I came to take a closer look at fashion and diversity, but we were really interested in seeing what kinds of representation existed for people with a disability in the sort of fashion space. And what we found is that by and large, people with a disability are excluded from mainstream representations of fashion. So that's not only on, say, the cover of magazines, but it's also in terms of their editorial spreads, their advertisements enclosed in magazines, and then also in terms of runway shows and other mainstream productions. This has shifted a little bit more in, say, the last 4 years, where we're starting to see models with a disability cast for these editorials, advertisements, and runway shows. That includes models like Kate Grant. It includes models like Erin Phillips. So we're beginning to see disability in these representations, but disability makes for a really interesting case because, as you sort of point out, it's the last axes of diversity that the fashion industry is now tending to. So in the, say, last decade, they've certainly been more conscientious about how they can represent race, about how they can represent body size and body diversity along a number of different dimensions. But disability has been the sort of last frontier for inclusion. And that is shifting. We're seeing that shift happen quite quickly in what we would call, again, the commercial space. And in part, this is because the commercial space is very sensitive to consumer demand, more so than, say, elite or couture fashion. So the commercial space here, you can think of retailers like Zara, H&M, Victoria's Secret, American Eagle. These are retailers who really depend on their consumers to shop and make purchases, and who are ultimately beholden to consumer desire. Now, people with a disability actually make up a significant number of consumers within this landscape and have been by and large neglected. So there are real sort of dollars and cents here, which I think commercial retailers are increasingly interested in capturing. So there is a desire to capture these consumers, to not only cast them in images and advertisements, but also to manufacture clothing for people with a disability, which is unique. So Tommy Hilfiger, for example, has made a line of adaptive garments, and these are tailored specifically for people with a disability, which is really cool, and I think something we need more of. The couture space, or elite fashion, is somewhat less sensitive to consumer demand. This is fashion that is manufactured for a very small number of consumers around the globe, for a number of consumers who have a substantial amount of economic capital or wealth. And so given that this is a market that is less sensitive to the sort of mass of consumers, we're not seeing quite as much change here. There's certainly more opportunity for inclusion for people with a disability, but the couture space continues to be dominated by other kinds of representation. So here again, we're seeing things like age representation, gender diversity, body size diversity, but less so with respect to disability.